signed her up on. She didn't really pay attention to it, that she could set all that aside and base the decision only on the evidence here in the courtroom. And I didn't really sense the same level of emotion that you've argued here that she had. And so I don't have a reasonable doubt that she can be fair and impartial at this point in time based on her response. And so I'm denying the challenge for cause. Juror 98. You want to bring
98.
Go first. Thank you,
you need to
Use my line.
there's a small handwriting.
The license says small.
Juror 98 has small handwriting. Good morning, sir. Pardon?
I've never been accused of that.
Well, anyways, thank you, sir, and good morning. Juror 98, what area of Nassau County do you live in, sir?
Yeah.
Okay, now, so in your questionnaire, you indicated that you've heard nothing about this case. Is that true?
Unfortunately.
Or, I mean, if some people just don't pay attention to these sorts of things. Some people are new to the area. I mean, I don't, well, let me say this. I mean, you've never heard anything on the news about this.
I don't really watch local news. I do projects around the house. I do a lot of things around the house, and I just really don't spend a whole lot of time watching anything local.
Okay, or reading the local newspaper. Did you hear about the case were just people in the community that you know?
No.
Okay, so do you know anything about this case or the alleged facts in this case other than what I just read to you a few minutes ago?
You've given me the most information I've ever heard about it.
All right, does the state wish to inquire?
No, Your Honor.
Does the defense?
Yes, sir. Court Miller representing Ms. Kessler. Good morning. If you said that, I didn't catch it, but how long have you lived in Callahan?
I think we moved there in 07.
And you don't watch news or?
I watch national news, nothing really local.
You don't get the local paper?
I get the Nassau County Record, but usually don't read it.
Okay. Let's see. And are you on any social media?
No,
No Facebook page?
I got many other things to do that are far more important.
Understand. Thank you.
All right, they're going to take you back to the grand jury room. Thank you. All right, does the state wish to challenge Juror 98 for cause,
No, Your Honor.
defense?
No, Your Honor.
And I think next one, Juror 100. Yes, sir. Juror 100, good morning. Good morning. All right, make sure you keep your voice up so they can hear you across the room, okay? All right, sir, you indicated in your questionnaire that you've heard about this case. Can you tell us from what source you've heard?
Mostly news, but my wife went to Joleen for a couple of years as a hairdresser. So she was following it, and that's why I tangentially know about it.
Okay, so you've talked to your wife about this?
Yes.
And has she talked to anyone over at Tangles that you're aware of about this?
She used to go to Tangles.
Right, so
Yes.
did she continue going after?
No, she went to a different place.
Okay. So what have you learned about this case from talking with your wife or from the news?
That the suspect had multiple aliases, spoke stolen car, and I believe they found some evidence at the salon. DNA stuff and, blood, but not.
All right. When was the last time you talked to your wife about the case?
Okay. It feels like it happened a long time ago, so
So was it fair to say that you were talking about it more?
when was that? Yeah, I thought it was solved and tried and all that, so.
And since then, have you had really any discussions with
No,
her?
no.
Have you been following the case in the news closely?
I don't think it's been much in the news recently.
Okay. So sir, jurors, in whatever case it is, jurors are required to base their decisions solely on what evidence is presented in the courtroom, as well as the instructions that the judge gives them on the law. If you were selected as a juror in this case, could you set aside whatever you think you may have learned from your wife or from the news and judge this case and base your decision solely on the evidence presented in the courtroom and on the instructions on the law that I give?
I believe so.
Okay, now when you say the term, I use the phrase "I believe so," are you using that as a figure of speech, or is there some kind of hesitancy?
Well, I can't unhear things that I've heard, so I don't know how that would filter into anything, we don't, you can't say for absolute sure that something subliminal isn't going to affect you.
Okay, well, I'm dealing. I don't know as a judge, I deal with subliminal things, but what I do know is that I need, the jurors have to be able to set aside whatever they bring in as far as what they think they know about the case, and set all that aside and have it, and basically be a blank slate and listen to the evidence and base their decisions on that, as well as the legal instructions given by the judge. Can you do that in this case? Or is there some hesitancy?
Like I said, there is some hesitancy because I can't unhear, things. So I don't know how that influences at some level of decision making. I can't say for sure that I could do that.
All right, and I appreciate your candor. Does the state wish to inquire?
No, Your Honor.
Does the defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, sir. It'll take you back to the grand jury room.
Thanks, sir.
Objections from striking juror 100 for cause.
None from the state.
None from the press.
Juror 100 will be removed for cause. Juror number 101. All right, that's fine, right there, that's great. Good morning, juror 101. First of all, can you tell us what part of Nassau County that you live in now?
Brasco.
Okay, and you've indicated, and I'm using your terms here in the questionnaire, that you've heard about the case, but very little. Can you tell us, outside of what I just told you, well, first of all, can you tell us what source you've heard about this case from, other than what I just told you earlier a few minutes ago?
I don't typically watch the news, but sometimes it'll be on before I change the channel and a little bit there, but very little, on there, like I said, 2 days ago, but I even told you their names.
Okay, so.
Hairdressers, about all I know.
Okay, and when you see reports about this case on television, or do you change the channel? I guess I'm gathering that's from what you told us, is that maybe something you do?
I don't change it because of the case, but I just haven't got to the remote in time to change it off the news.
I see. And have you read anything in any newspaper articles or on the internet?
No.
All right. So is there anything that you have heard about this case that would cause you to be unable to be fair to both sides?
I don't think so.
All right, jurors can, well, when you say I don't think so, are you just saying that as a figure of speech? Or do you have some kind of hesitancy or doubt?
I don't have any hesitancy.
Okay,
It's just, I'm like, I don't know what will be said, so I don't know.
sure, and jurors are required to base their decisions in a case solely on the evidence that's presented in the courtroom and the instructions that the judge gives them on the law. Whatever you've been unable to avoid in the news media or and that you've heard about this case, can you set that aside and base your decision, if you were selected as a juror in this case, solely on the evidence presented in the court as well as my instructions?
Yes.
Does the state wish to inquire?
So I understand you do not watch the news. Do you stay up on current events in some other way besides watching the news?
Just for what people talking to other people and what they say or anything, and we've never talked about this case because just never came up.
Yes, ma'am. So current events, is there someone in your household who's like more of the news
Yeah,
junkie?
my husband.
Okay, I understand that. And so you get, your husband kind of keeps you abreast of the current news?
Yes.
All righty, thank you.
Does the defense wish to inquire?
Yes, Your Honor. Bill representing Ms. Kessler.
On number 101. When you said you knew very little, I think what I was gathering was nothing from any news, but maybe for some people talking, is that?
Talking and like the headline, when she was missing and her arrest, and then just the basic high level headline, but not the details of the articles.
I see. Do you get any of the local papers,
Um,
like the News Leader?
Was it the West Side Journal?
What?
Whatever. I think that's what it's called.
Are you on any
Sorry.
social media such as Facebook?
I am on Facebook.
You ever see anything pop up on Facebook?
I don't recall if I did. I didn't, like I said, I don't click into them and read the article.
Understand, thank you.
All right, they're gonna take you back now to the grand jury room. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any challenges for cause from the state, from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, juror 102. All right, good morning. Juror 102, can you tell us what part of Nassau County you live in generally?
Callahan.
All right, and sir, you've indicated that you've heard about this case. Can you tell us from what sources you've heard about the case?
News outlets, people that I work with, knew the family, maybe it didn't hearsay or whatever, but gossip, I guess you would say. Other than that, that's it.
And the news outlets, are this television or the internet or the print newspaper?
Television and internet.
Okay, have you been following the case closely through the news? All right, can you tell us specifically what you have learned about the case from these various sources?
I heard that this was, right after it happened, kind of, that they found like blood and hair in the drains of the salon. I heard that they thought, she had been killed there and her body was taken somewhere else. That's probably about it.
All right, have you learned about any of the potential evidence that may be presented in the case from those sources?
What's that now?
Have you learned about any of the potential evidence, the testimony or physical evidence that might be entered in the case? All right, sir, if you were selected as a well, all jurors are required to base their decisions in the case solely on the evidence that's presented in the courtroom, as well as the instructions on the law that the judge gives them. If you were selected as a juror in this case, could you set aside everything that you think that you may have learned about this case from, as you term it, gossip or from news outlets, and base your decisions solely on the evidence that's been presented here in court, as well as my instructions on the law?
Yes, sir, I think I could.
When you say I think I could, are you using that phrase as just a figure of speech, or do you have some hesitancy as to whether you could do that or not?
I don't have any hesitancy, it's just, I guess the defense would have to do a really good job to change my mind.
All right, well, understand something that, and if you're selected as a juror, when you go through the jury selection, the next phase, this will be explained to you, but the defense, every defendant in every case is presumed innocent until the state meets their burden of proof to show that the crime has been committed by the defendant beyond and to the exclusion of any reasonable doubt. That's in every criminal case, doesn't matter whether it's a, for stealing a pack of gum all the way up to a homicide or murder charge. So, and because of that, the defense doesn't have to prove anything. The defense doesn't have to do anything in a case if they don't want to. All right. So knowing that, are you still going to make the defense prove the defendant's innocence in this case? Or can you follow the law and the instructions I give on the state's burden of proof?
Yeah, I really like to follow the law. I've always done it, in the past. So.
When you say I believe, again, is there some hesitancy there, or are you just, is that just a figure of speech?
I will follow the law.
All right, is there anything you've heard from any of these sources about the case that would cause you to be unfair or prevent you from being able to be fair to both sides?
Oh, no, sir.
You could still be fair to the defense. You need to answer out loud.
Yes, sir.
All right, would the state wish to inquire?
No, Your Honor.
Is the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. Courtney Miller representing Ms. Kessler. Good morning, Juror 102. So you mentioned about news, the TV news. Do you get any of the print news, like papers?
I do, but I rarely see anything about it in the actual paper papers.
Okay. Which papers do you?
Nassau County Record or Nassau County Journal.
And then what about like through social media? Are you like through Facebook?
Yeah, I mean, I have it. I'm not very active on it. I might have seen something, just not paid attention to it. Most of what I've heard is just from people that supposedly know about the case or whatever.
I see. So if you'd seen something on Facebook, that's not something you would have commented on?
Oh, no.
You mentioned your coworkers knew the family. I take it you mean the family of Joleen Cummings?
Yes.
Okay, so Connie Johnson, Ann Johnson.
I'm not sure exactly who they knew.
Well, being your coworkers, have there been discussions as this, the cases, since the case has been pending for over 3 years now during that time?
Yes, sir. But like I said, it's been in the past. I've actually changed jobs since then, but it was just a, brief discussion of, hey, I heard that this happened and this happened, and that was it.
Any discussions about the potential guilt of Ms. Kessler?
Not that I can recall, but
How long ago did you change jobs where you weren't with the same coworkers?
it was 2.5, 3 years ago.
And you mentioned some specific details that you knew of or had heard of. Knowing those details, I know he said he thought the defense would have to do a good job on the case. Is it because of knowing those details and what you knew from the discussion through your coworkers that you might lean more towards guilty?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I guess if I look at it, you know, I kind of misspoke when I said that earlier, but I mean, anybody could have done it, I guess, you know what I'm saying? But what they were insinuating was that they thought maybe she had done it and they found this in the drain or whatever. You know, I mean, nothing to do with what I thought.
Are you still in touch with some of those coworkers? Thank you.
All right, thank you. You can go back to the grand jury room now.
All right.
All right, the state wish to challenge for cause,
No, Your Honor.
defense,
No, Your Honor.
all right. 103. Through 103. All right, good morning, juror 103. All right, you, can you tell us what area of Nassau County you live in general? Okay,
I'm sorry, Judge, I did not hear.
Hilliard.
Thank you.
And make sure you keep your voice up so they can hear you over there, okay? So you have indicated here that you've heard something about this case and you were specific. You said it was an article in the Fernandina paper. Have you, other than the Fernandina paper article, have you heard anything else about this case?
Yes, sir.
So that's the only time you've ever heard about the case? Okay, and what did you learn from that article?
Just the announcement of the date, I recall that it was the 29th, and I was curious because I had received my jury summons already. So I was curious if I was going to be on that jury.
All right. Is there anything in that article that you read that would cause you in any way to be unfair or prevent you from being able to be fair to both sides in this case? Okay. Did you learn any facts about the case whatsoever other than what I stated a few minutes ago?
Yes, sir.
All right. Does the state wish to inquire?
Yes.
Good morning.
Do you watch or read the news in general?
No, I'm not generally.
Do you have a way of keeping up with current events?
Just the paper that comes through my work. The only reason I was reading it that day, I was looking for a specific article for our Christmas program.
Do you have a Facebook account?
I do, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Have you seen any headlines on Facebook?
No, ma'am, I'm not on it generally.
All right, thank you.
Does the defense wish to inquire?
Yes. Court Middle representing Ms. Kessler. Morning, number 103. So the Fernandina paper you're referring to is the Fernandina News Leader.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you read the article?
No, sir.
Just notice the date, so, and then you had your summons before that.
Yes.
To that. Okay. But you had heard nothing prior?
Nothing prior to this.
Okay. So you could definitely come in here on a clean slate.
I believe so, yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, they're gonna take you back to the grand jury room. Thank you. All right, state wish to challenge juror 103 for cause,
Thank you.
defense.
No, you're right.
All right, juror 104. Juror 104, good morning. You're
Right here,
right.
right here, right here. Right.
You're fine, either one of those is fine.
Big one,
That's
there you
fine.
go. Thank you. bud.
There you go. Good morning. All right, thank you for being here. Juror 104, can you tell us what area of Nassau County you live in generally?
Amelia,
Okay, and you have indicated that you have heard about this case. Can you tell us from what source or sources?
TV, radio, internet, YouTube.
So YouTube, all right. Can you tell us what you've learned about the case from those sources?
So I mean, and what's been brought forth as the incriminating information so far is, I mean, do you want me?
Yeah, we'd like to give some details about what you think you might have learned from those sources.
Evidently, the defendant had or drove the victim's car and dropped it off at a Home Depot on that night when she was last seen. The defendant evidently has the victim's or had the victim's blood on her shoes. They were co-workers. Supposedly they got into some kind of argument on the day, or altercation, I guess, on the day that she went missing. She was caught on videotape actually dropping off the vehicle at Home Depot and also dumping garbage bags, heavy garbage bags into a dumpster, or multiple dumpsters, I believe it was.
All right, so is it fair to say you've been following this case closely through the media?
I wouldn't say closely, but I keep up with
All right.
local news.
Okay, so at this point, if jurors in any case are required to base their decisions solely on the evidence that's presented in court, as well as the instructions that the judge gives them on the law. If you were selected as a juror in this case, could you set aside all that you may have learned or think you may have learned from all these various news sources and base your decision solely on the evidence presented in court as well as my instructions on the law?
I would do my best to do so.
Okay, is there some kind of hesitancy about whether you could set aside all that information and base your decision only on the evidence?
I don't think, I mean, I know it's my obligation as a civil servant to listen to the facts of the case, but I would do my best to base everything I learned on just what I learned.
Do you have any hesitancy or doubt that you could do that?
No.
All right. Is there anything you have learned about this case through the various media reports that you've read that would cause you to be unable to be fair to both sides?
No.
All right. I mean, can you come in here if you were selected as a juror and basically start with a blank slate as to the information about the case?
So I think I would do my best.
So again, we say you do your best. Do you have some hesitancy or doubt you could do that?
There was always hesitancy, but I feel pretty confident that I could do. Yes.
All right, the state wish to inquire.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Would you agree with me that you can't rely on the news for a full and complete description of a story?
Yes.
So let's take one of the examples that you gave, that you heard in the news that the defendant had Joleen Cummings' blood on her shoes. Let's just take that example. Could you basically take that information, put it in a box, not think about it until the trial is over, unless from the witness stand you hear that same evidence? Could you do that?
I think so.
I know it's uncomfortable, but we're looking more for a yes or a no than an I think so.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Does the defense wish to inquire?
Yes, Your Honor. Court Miller representing Ms. Kessler. Morning. Good morning. You mentioned TV and radio. Is there any particular channels or stations that you listen to?
Local channels.
Okay. You also mentioned internet and YouTube. Besides YouTube, any other internet sources that you've noticed this case covered?
I mean, news feeds, but I'd say it's primarily.
Okay. And what you see on YouTube, is that the basis of you like doing a search?
Yeah, they come up as you're reviewing information, and they come up with what looks interesting, I'll click on it and see. So this has been an interesting case.
Understand. I was about to say it's natural because you live here locally and it's happened locally. And again, there's no right or wrong answers here. We're just here to talk about what you've heard and what you know. So are you on Facebook?
No,
No? Okay. So it sounds like just kind of being on the internet, you might see something come up, just kind of in general. So fair to say?
yes.
But you did mention a lot of specifics. I mean, thinking back to the number of times you've seen something come up, and thinking ahead, if you were a juror on the case, is that something that you might still think about? I mean, because of the exposure you have?
Something I might still think about, yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. It'll take you back to the grand jury room now. Wish to challenge juror 1 and 4 for cause,
No, Your Honor.
defense.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right,
I noticed even during the court's questioning, he was equivocal. And then he said, it's like a lot of exposure that he said would be in his mind, if he were to be a juror on the case.
well,
I do think there's a reasonable doubt for him to be fair and impartial.
does the state wish to respond?
Yes, sir. He agreed that he would not consider the evidence that he has heard outside the courtroom while he's in the courtroom. Defense's final question to him is, would you still think about it? That is not what we're here to determine. It's whether you would consider it in rendering a fair and just verdict, and that's not what he was asked. And he agreed that he would be a fair and impartial juror and that he put what he knew aside.
All right, with respect to this witness, he did have a pretty detailed understanding of some of the evidence in the case, but none of it was any of the evidence that I'm aware of that will be precluded or excluded from consideration later on. I asked him if he could set all that aside and base his decision solely on the evidence in this courtroom, and he said, I believe so. And then I clarified with him, is that a figure of speech, or do you think you can do it? And he said, yes, I can do it. I said, do you start with a blank slate? Does everybody start with a blank slate? And he said, yes. Again, I think the state is correct in the sense that the standard is, it's not if it's in the back of his mind, it's whether it's gonna interfere with his decision making. And in this case, if he's selected as a juror, can he set it aside or not? And I don't have any doubt about that after listening to his answers and observing the manner in which he responded to the court's questions. And so I'm denying the challenge for cause. Juror 105.
Thanks, sir.
105?
Thanks, sir.
All right, good morning.
Morning.
Juror 105, thank you for being here. Can you tell us what area of the county, Nassau County, you live in?
I live in Cali.
Okay. All right, you have indicated that you have heard about this case, but you were very specific in your questionnaire in stating that you've heard only as related to what your wife has heard on TV news. I tell you, have you seen any news accounts on TV or on the internet about this case yourself?
Generally, I'm not watching local news. I deal more with, as it relates to my job industry, type news, and technical things, project management, type things. Other than that, the team that I work with is global, so I tend to go to Reuters and look at global headlines instead of local ones.
And so it's true then that the only thing you've heard about this case is been filtered through your wife after she's watched the news.
Well, yeah, she did send me the link once on Sunday evening, saying, hey, I think this is the case that you're going for, saying the jury was being selected. But all that was in there was what you had stated this morning in the particulars of the case.
And so you read that article, but that's it.
That's it.
All right. Well, have you talked to anybody else about this case other than your wife?
No, I work from home, so my talking to people is pretty much limited to the team that I work with, which again, some are in Texas, some are in the Philippines, Singapore, and UK. So we generally don't have a whole lot of discussion about local issues. We really relate more towards our company, and our company is a third-party logistics company. So we talk about the supply chain issues, ships backing up at ports, those kinds of things.
All right.
As far as social, I have a very small group of people, and we usually are just talking about woodworking and tools and those kinds of things.
Fair enough. Jurors in any case are required to base their decision solely on the evidence that's presented in the courtroom and also the instructions that the judge gives them on the wall. If you were selected as a juror in this case, could you set aside whatever it is you've heard about this case through your wife or through the article that you read the other day and base your decision solely on the evidence that is presented to you in the courtroom, as well as my instructions on the wall?
Yes, sir. I actually try to do that with my kids, hear both sides of the story, and try to filter out what are the actual facts. And so, I mean, yes.
All right, does the state wish to inquire?
No, sir, Your Honor.
Does the defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, sir. They're gonna take it back to the grand jury room.
Sir, thank you very much.
All right, state wish to challenge juror 105 for cause,
No, Your Honor.
defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, we'll go to juror 106.
Thanks, sir.
All right, good morning, juror 106. Can you tell us what area of Nassau County you live in generally?
Like I'll pay 1,800 one.
Okay, so it's kind
Airbnb.
of, okay. Now, you've indicated in your answers to the questionnaire that you have heard about this case. Can you tell us from what sources?
News for Jacks, on the internet.
Make sure you keep your voice up so they can hear you way over there, okay?
And television. My wife talks about it a lot.
Okay, and does she follow the case pretty closely?
On like Facebook with the News for Jacks app. I get updates from like on Michigan.
Is your wife involved in any kind of Facebook groups or that are specifically devoted to this case?
I don't think it's like that. I just think she has it on Facebook. She just stays on one part. So it's kind of something that's in the news and relevant.
So it comes on the news feed and
Right.
she then reads it.
Right.
So can you, through all these sources, be it your wife or the television news that you watch, can you tell us what you've learned about the case or what you think you might know about the case?
Obviously, there was a murder at the Tango Salon. I think the vehicle was stolen, but the woman was killed. Joleen. I thought I'm told that there was like video footage of garbage being thrown in the dumpster that later came to light, and it's kind of unusual because it's large bags of garbage that, like a salon wouldn't have.
I'm sorry?
I said, I think that's about it.
All right. Well, sir, jurors in any case are required to base their decisions solely on the evidence that's presented in the courtroom and not anything that may have been stated in the news media or by, comments by friends or family. As well as they're required to also take into consideration the instructions on the law that the judge gives them. If you were selected in this case to be a juror, could you set aside anything you think you might have learned from your wife or watching television news and base your decision solely on the evidence that's presented here in court as well as my instructions on the law?
I think I'd have a hard time doing it.
Okay. The state wish to inquire?
There.
Defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right. They'll take it back to the grand jury room. Thank you. All right. Does anyone have an objection to striking juror 1 and 6 for cause?
No, Your Honor.
All right, juror 1 and 6 will be stricken for cause. Juror 1 and 7.
Which chair?
All right, good morning, juror 107. Thank you for being here. Can you tell us what part of Nassau County generally you live in?
On the island.
Okay, now you have indicated that you have heard something about this case. Can you tell us from what source or sources you've learned information about the case from?
Just from the news leader, the headlines.
Okay, when you say the headlines, are you implying or stating that you didn't read the articles, you just read the headlines?
I just perused some of the article. What I knew more or less is what you reiterated earlier on basically what happened.
Okay, do you have any other details from other than what I stated earlier?
Not really.
Okay, not,
I didn't, something that didn't affect me, and it's no need for me to read through it and peruse it.
have you watched any reports about this case on television news? How about on the internet? Are you on Facebook? Okay.
I'm on Facebook very little, but I never saw anything about it.
All right, well, jurors in any case are required to base their decisions solely on the evidence that's presented in court, as well as the instructions on the law that the judge gives them. Can, whatever you've, and I'm using your term, perused through the news leader about this case, can you set that aside if you were selected as a juror and base your decision solely on the evidence presented in court and my instructions on the law?
Yes, sir.
Is there anything you've read or perused that would cause you to be unable to be fair to both sides in this case?
No.
All right, state wish to inquire? All right.
Good morning. You indicated that you've seen some headlines in the newsletter. How often do you look at the newsletter?
I get one about once every 2 weeks. I don't subscribe to it. And,
Do you watch any local news? What about any national news?
I watch national.
Okay, is that how you keep up with current events? And so I believe you said that it didn't affect me, so there was no reason to read it.
It's like what you read in the news leader about the court. There's always something in there about the court. I'm not concerned with what goes on in the court. It's not
Okay,
going to affect my life either one way or the other.
so safe to say you only really read the news leader articles that would affect you.
Yes.
No further questions.
Defense wish to inquire?
No, Your Honor.
All right, sir, thank you. They're going to take you back to the grand jury room.
Thank you.
State wish to strike juror 107 for cause, defense.
No, Your Honor.
All right, 108 has been excused as being a non-resident, so will be a juror 109. All right, good morning, sir. Can you tell us what part of Nassau County you live in generally?
I'm in Nassau.
Okay. Sir, you've indicated on your questionnaire that you have heard about this case. Can you tell us from what sources?
This, you know, news and all that, newspaper, not nobody in general, in person, but
Would the news, would that include television news reports?
yes,
And also the newspaper?
pretty much.
Okay, can you tell us specifically what you've learned from those sources?
Not too much. I mean, it's been sort of quiet about it, but nothing in detail about other than the car and all that, then what they found, but
Other than the car,
yeah, so.
anything else besides that? You're shaking your head, you need to answer out loud.
No, I mean, that's all I know about.
All right. So jurors in any case are required to base their decisions only on the evidence that's presented in court, not anything they may have learned outside of court. And also on the instructions on the law that the judge gives them. Can you, if you are selected as a juror in this case, can you set aside whatever it is you read about this case in the news or newspapers or seen on the television and base your decision solely on the evidence that is presented to you in this court, as well as my instructions?
Yes, sir.
All right, is there anything you've read or seen related to this case that would cause you to be unable to be fair to both sides?
I don't think so.
All right, well, when you say I don't think so, are you just using that as a figure of speech, or is there some hesitancy that you can't be fair to both sides?
Well, I knew Joleen. Tank was swallowed there. I mean, that's why I knew her from, but other than that, I don't.
Okay, so you knew Joleen Cummings. How well did you know her?
Just going to get my hair cut up there for however long she worked up there, but
Did she cut your hair?
yes, sir.
So knowing that this case is involving Joleen Cummings, can you still be fair to the defense?
Yes, sir.
Can you, the defendant, like in every case, any criminal case, is presumed innocent, and the state is required to prove their guilt beyond and to the exclusion of any reasonable doubt. Can you make the state meet their, or still require the state to meet their burden of proof, even though you knew Joleen Cummings?
Yes, sir.
And the state wish to inquire? Defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, then they'll take you back to the grand jury room.
Thank you, sir.
Pardon? I thought you said you didn't want to inquire.
I was talking to Mr. Council.
You want to come back and ask him some questions?
Yes, sir.
That's
I
fine.
thought we were heading towards a certain direction, but I think it would be good for the record.
He wanted to. Thank you.
Good morning, Juror 109, Courtney Miller, representing Ms. Kessler. Sorry to have to go out and come back in. I just wanted to ask a few things. How long have you lived in Nassau?
Probably 19 years up there.
And I know that's close to Tangles. You mentioned you got your hair cut there. In particular by Joleen Cummings. So imagine you've had a lot of discussions with her over how long has she been cutting your hair?
I'd I'd say probably 8 or 9 months.
Okay. Up until she went missing?
Yes, sir.
And are you on any social media? Don't do Facebook, none of that? Okay. Let me ask you, someone who cut your hair, I know you have a lot of conversations with, you get to know them pretty well. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And let me just ask her, would it cause you any issue being impartial to sit as a juror in this particular case?
I don't think so.
You sure it wouldn't make you lean a little more? Okay, well, let me ask you this, you mentioned from the news and newspaper, you knew that Ms. Cummings' car was found, but you mentioned you really don't know anything else?
So I've seen the newspaper, heard on the news, I mean, other than that.
Well, what newspaper do you get?
Ferndale.
News leader? How often? It comes out twice a week.
Well, we look at a shop, I work for the city, so we see it, somebody brings one in pretty regular.
Okay, so pretty much every issue will be available to you. Is that right?
Yes, if we got time to sit down and read it for a few minutes, but.
Okay. Okay, so you're sure you can come in here with a clean slate, put everything behind you? You need to answer out loud. For it.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
All right, now you can go back to the grand jury. Thank you. State wish to challenge juror 109 for cause.
Yeah.
Defense.
Still with me for a cause. I realize the answers given wouldn't rise to that. But it's a pretty close relationship. He's been in that salon, haircut, body, that's good in the case. Well, that's all I have. Like I said, I realize that on the record, it's going to show that he answered questions the right way. It's important that that's not the be all end all. If there is a reasonable doubt whether this juror could be impartial, and I think there is just from the relationships.
Counsel for the state.
We would rely on the way that he answered the questions, he indicated multiple times he could set it aside and be very impartial.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time. I wanted to give you an opportunity to ask some further questions. It could delve into how the extent of the relationship. But clearly, I got from this that she was cutting his hair up to the point in time when this occurred, and I can't. I've got a reasonable doubt that he could come in and be fair to the defense, given that. So I'm going to go ahead and grant the challenge for cause. So, juror 110. We're on number 110 now. Okay.
So, thank you. Thank you.
Juror 110, good morning.
Good morning.
All right, make sure you keep your voice up so I can hear you all the way over there, okay? All right, so can you tell us what area of Nassau County you live in?
I'm in the hideaway, just off of 17, right close by.
So it'd be Yulee area?
Yes.
Okay, and you've indicated that you have heard about this case. Can you tell us from what source you've heard of from?
I've seen a couple of headlines just on Google. I've seen 2 articles from, I think, one from News4Jax, one from CBS, and then a video from one of those websites. Just a short little recap of the case.
Was the video just a video of a news story or?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So from these sources, these that you've seen or read, what have you learned about this case?
basically that it was a murder case. I heard of the Kessler involved. I know, I learned about something with a dumpster and some bag. They showed a clip of her throwing something in a dumpster. And I think it was mostly about how 300 jurors were getting picked for that case. So it was centered around that, I guess.
Okay, and did you learn any other details that may have been reported other than what you just told us? Anything else?
One of the articles mentioned she had a number of aliases, and that kind of, that's why this case was notable. And so I remember that. I think that was about it. I think those are the main highlights from the video.
Have you been following this case closely through the news?
No, that was the first I heard of it, just a few days ago.
Oh, really? So before, I guess, a few days ago, you didn't even know about this case at all?
I did not.
Okay. Jurors, in any case, are required to make their decisions based solely on evidence that's presented in the courtroom, as well as the instructions that are given by the judge on the law. If you were selected as a juror in this case, would you be able to set aside what you read and saw a few days ago, really, and come in and base your decision solely on the evidence that you see and hear in this courtroom, as well as the instructions that I give on the law?
Yes.
Is there anything that you saw in those reports that would prevent you from being fair to both sides in this case?
No.
All right, and the state wish to inquire?
Good morning. How long have you lived here in Newland?
Almost 5 years.
And I know that you indicated you had seen some headlines on Google and articles.
Mhm.
Do you usually get your news sources from Google?
Yeah,
Right. Do you watch any of the local news?
no, I don't have cable.
Okay. Do you watch any or read any of the local papers?
No.
Okay. No further questions.
And does the defense wish to inquire?
Yes, sure. Good morning, Julie 110, George Miller representing Ms. Kessler. So the coverage that you've seen, you say this, well, let me go back. You said you've lived in Yulee for about 3 years? For 5 years or something? Okay. So as this case has been going on, you had not heard anything about it? But just a few days ago, you happened to get online and find some things about the case. The video you watched, was that on YouTube?
It was embedded in one of the news articles.
Okay, I see. So you just click on that and it showed.
Right,
Video
it was,
comes up.
I think it was the CBS video within their news article.
Well, having seen, these things, I realize very recent, but if you were a juror in the case, do you think it might cause you to lean more one way than the other based on what you've seen?
I don't think so.
Think so? You don't think so?
No,
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. You can step back to the grand jury. State wish to challenge Juror 110 for cause?
Yeah.
Defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right. For 111, when you get a chance. We may take a 5-minute break though, just to, I think the next jurors were instructed to come in at 11. Yesterday we sort of recalculated a little bit, but if they're gonna be needed, I don't know, so.
11 is.
Pardon, yeah, juror 111, but we'll probably want to take a 5-minute break after this. We've been going an hour and a half since we started the questioning. So. Juror 111, good morning. Make sure, it sounds like you have a soft voice, so make sure you keep your voice up so they can hear you way over there, okay? All right, ma'am, can you tell us what area of Nassau County you live in?
Hilliard.
Okay, and you've indicated in your questionnaire that you have heard about this case. Can you tell us from what sources you've heard information related to this case?
From the news and from the community.
Okay, was from the news, or we're talking about television or
Yes.
Facebook or internet or what?
Television.
Okay. And you said in the community, so can you be a little more specific about, was this just people talking or something more formal?
It's people talking.
Okay. And would this be at work or friends or?
It's both work and friends.
Okay. And what have you learned about the case from these various sources?
We're pretty much, everyone says she's guilty. Cause a lot of people knew the Joleen. So a lot of people are saying that she's guilty, she did it.
And do you feel that way at this point?
I do, I somewhat do.
You somewhat do, and that's based on just what you've heard in the community?
Right.
All right, does the state wish to inquire?
Your Honor.
Defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you'll step back to the grand jury room, thank you. The objections for striking, juror 111 for cause.
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
All right. Let's do this. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna go and do a full hour and a half. We're gonna take just a 5-minute recess, come back and finish the last 9 jurors and see where that leaves us. I mean, right now, I think we've got 11 from this group.
63 yesterday, I think.
Yeah, so it was 64. I was thinking, I don't believe there's been a waiver of 12-person jury. And I was talking, for some reason, I thought in the back of my head there was, so. I'm gonna try to get it as close to 70 as we can, as opposed to lower 60s, all right, which we're heading in that direction, okay? Okay. We do have one issue here. Why is it juror 172 here? Well, I guess. I can't remember earlier. I've been informed that juror 172 has shown up and he has strep throat. Is there going to be an objection for me excusing juror 172?
Not for the stage.
Okay, all right. Then we'll remove juror 172. If you'll let Ms. Cribb or whoever's over there know that he's excused. All right, we're gonna take just a 5-minute recess and we'll come back and finish up with this. Or resume juror 112.
Well, thank you, sir. Sit on the first seat.
All right, good morning. Morning. Juror 112, can you tell us what area of Nassau County you live in?
I'm in Marsh Lakes.
Okay, and is that Yulee, Callahan?
Oh, Yulee, yes.
Okay. Now, sir, you have indicated on your questionnaire that you have heard about this case. Can you tell us from what sources?
Our local news,
That television? or-
television, newspaper, internet.
You said the internet is on Facebook or just reading,
Reading.
let me finish the question. I know you're anticipating what I'm gonna say, but she's gotta take it down. So has it been, is this on like news websites or is it Facebook feed or what?
News website.
Okay. And so let me ask you this, from all these various media sources, what have you been told about the case? Or what have you read about the case or seen about or heard about the case?
You mean specifics?
Yes, yes, sir.
Other than I know that she was in possession of her Joleen Cummings car. I think they have videotape of her purchasing instruments to complete her crime. I do feel that there's more damning evidence against her that we haven't heard.
All right. So let me ask you this, by stating, by phrasing it in a manner, you think there's more damning evidence that you haven't heard. Have you formed an opinion about this case through just media reports?
I have.
Okay, and without actually hearing any evidence in court? You formed an opinion?
Yes.
All right, the state wish to inquire?
No, you're right.
Defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right. They'll take you back to the grand jury room. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Objection for excusing juror 112 for cause.
No, you're right.
All right,
No, Your Honor.
Juror 113. All right, juror 113, good morning. You can have a seat, please. I'm sorry, I caught you right when you were sitting down. Good morning. You've indicated in your questionnaire that you've heard about this case. Can you tell us from what sources you've gathered information?
Just through the news. We moved here about 6 months before this happened. We got 3 young girls. It was a big topic in our house. So First Coast News, Fernandina Beach Observer, a local barbershop. So
Okay, and what area of Nassau County do you live, just generally? Yulee, Callahan?
Amelia Island.
Okay. So from all, let me ask you this way, I mean, when you moved here, you said it was a big story. Have you been following the case through the news since then?
Yes.
Okay, so what have you been told or learned from these various sources about the case? What details?
The potential murder that happened inside of Tangles, the purchase of electric knives, garbage bags, bleach, the cover up of blood in or apparent cleanup of blood with bleach inside of Tangles, searching for the landfills, no body found. The outbursting, yeah, pretty much everything has been on the news I've seen.
All right, well, jurors in every case are required to decide, make their decisions based solely on evidence that's been presented in court, not on news media accounts or what's been disseminated in the general public. They're required to base their decision on evidence in the courtroom, and that's it. As in addition to the instructions on the law that the judge gives them. If you were selected as a juror in this case, could you set aside everything that you've been told about this case through all these various sources and base your decision solely on the evidence that's presented to you in court and my instructions on the law?
That's my job, yes.
Okay, at this point in time, is there anything you feel that would cause you to not be able to be fair to both sides at the beginning of the trial?
I don't think so. I think it may be worth noting that my daughter is dating a on-air TV reporter in the Jacksonville News that has and is covering this case. So I think that just needs to be noted.
All right, well, we'll talk about that in just a minute, but you said you think so that you can be fair to both sides, and there was nothing that would prevent you from being fair to both sides. When you say I think so, are you just using that term as a figure of speech, or is there some kind of hesitancy about whether you can do that or not?
Figure of speech.
Okay, the fact that your daughter is dating a TV reporter that's covering this case, would that somehow affect your ability to be fair and impartial to both sides?
No.
Does the state wish to inquire further? You may. Defense?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, 113, Courtney Miller, representing Ms. Kessler. So you said you moved to the island about 6 months before this occurred.
Somewhere.
You mentioned your family. It sounded to me like the way you're saying it was at the time, it was definitely a concern about a local crime in the area.
Yes.
And you recall when were you following it to where you saw that Ms. Kessler was arrested and charged?
I believe so, yes.
And then also everything leading up to now, as far as you, sounds like you, I think your term was you, pretty much everything on the news you have seen.
Everything that you watch the news every day.
Okay. Well, let me ask you to think about how you felt at the time it occurred, at the time Ms. Kessler was arrested, and then now since that time, all the things you've heard about either what's happened at the jail, here in the courtroom. Are these all things that you've heard a lot? So do you think it might make you be more partial to one side than the other as a juror?
If my job is to be objective, that's what I have to do. But I certainly would probably likely have bias just from what I've heard, just human bias. But if I'm to be objective, then that's my job.
Would it be fair to say it might cause you some difficulty sitting on the case?
I'm not sure how to answer that.
Well, let me ask this, there's, in the courthouse, there's different trials going on at different times, and the reason we have these questions is some jurors are better for one case, but not so much for another case. And do you feel like this might be a case that you might be more well suited to be on a different jury than this case?
I would probably be better suited on a different jury, but I don't know how to qualify that as an answer.
And I understand you would, if there's a job to do, you're going to try your best to do it. I guess my question is, with your knowledge of it, and you mentioned your family, and it sounded like some concern that was going through your mind at the time while this is going on. Is it something that might cause you to not be as impartial as maybe someone coming in with a clean slate?
I mean, I would fully assume somebody that knows nothing about this would be more impartial than me, just from the 3 years of knowing it. But I don't, I can't quantify that, but,
Okay, well, thank you.
All right, they'll take it back to the grand jury room. Thank you. State wish to challenge juror 113 cause, defense.
Yes, Rob, we came for a cause challenge. It'd be one that's pretty close, however. He did voice some equivocation. And I think with the standard being that there's a reasonable doubt to be fair and impartial, I think the court leans towards a excusal for cause.
State wish to respond.
And the state's response would be that the questions in which defense counsel may have sensed equivocation or questions about feelings, and the feelings don't necessarily have anything to do, especially when he was completely unequivocal with the fact that he's instructed and it's his job to be impartial.
Yeah, I'm still having a hard time with his response, saying likely to have bias, even though after we've gone through and explained what his job was, he said, you know, if that's my job, I would do it, but I would likely have bias. It just, I can't overcome that. And that gives me some reasonable doubt, and so he is stricken for cause. All right, juror 114. So right back here.
Right there you go. Thanks, sir.
All right, good morning. Thank you for being here. All right, juror 114, can you tell us what area generally of Nassau County do you live? Like Hilliard, Callahan, Fernandina Beach?
I am off island Fernandina.
Okay, off island Fernandina Beach or Fernandina. Okay. You've indicated that you have some knowledge, you've heard about this case. Can you tell us from what sources you've heard information related to this case?
Primarily from a coworker I had who followed it quite a bit, posted stuff on the Facebook, which is where I saw it initially. And then I'm sure I've probably seen it from other sources, but I would say through Facebook, sharing posts is primarily where I've seen it.
This, and is primarily from this friend, coworker?
Coworker, and then a smaller group of other coworkers, but I would say that she was probably the driving force behind that.
All right. Did this coworker that was the driving force, did she have some, you know, friendship or relationship with Joleen Cummings or anyone involved in this case?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so she was getting her information from the community and through the news and then sharing that with everyone, is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, so tell me from this source, and maybe if you saw something in the news, what did you learn about, or what were you told about this case?
It's been a while. Just probably nothing beyond the basic facts, not that basis of what we have already kind of stated as far as you know, murder, the grand theft portion of it. I would admit that I would have a hard time differentiating between what I read from the source and the additional commentary from my coworker, both through the sharing of the post and you know, at work. To hear it.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you what you last said,
Or at work.
Okay, well, I mean, that's fine, it's just general, whether it's online or discussions at work, it's from people in the community. Were there any, did you learn about any, or were you told about any of the potential evidence in this case?
No, I don't think so.
And would you say you've been, did you respond to those posts or did you just read them?
I just read,
Have you been following the case in the news?
not religiously.
All right, I'm sorry, I thought you were gonna say something else.
No.
All right, so jurors in any case that are required to base their decision solely on the evidence that's presented in the courtroom and on the instructions given to them by the judge on the law. If you were selected as a juror in this case, could you set aside anything that you may have been told by your coworker or you read in a post from a coworker or friends or seen in the news and base your decision solely on the evidence that you were presented in this courtroom as well as my instructions on the law?
I think so, yes.
Okay, when you say I think so, are you using that as just a figure of speech or is there some hesitancy?
Probably more so as a figure of speech.
Okay. Is there anything you've read or talked about with your coworker or friends or seen online or in the news that would prevent you from being fair to both sides in this case?
I don't think so.
Again, are you using that as a figure of speech?
Yes, probably.
That's okay. I mean, your body language sort of indicated that you were, but I want to make sure it's clear on the record that that's what you intended to communicate. Does the state wish to inquire? Defense?
Yes, sir. Morning, number 114. Courtney Miller, representing Ms. Kessler. So you mentioned a coworker seemed to be the main, some source of information towards you. Is that person still a coworker?
No.
How long has that been?
We had some layoffs last year, and then so it's about a year.
Okay. And do you know of the, well, how long have you been in Fernandina Beach?
Coming up on a decade.
Decade? Oh. And do you have any relationship or know of the Tangles hair salon? And it's being off island Fernandina Beach, you're probably pretty close to it. Do you know of the location where it was? Okay. And you mentioned about Facebook. When you said sharing posts, was that something someone shared with you or?
Publicly, so I saw it on my.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Publicly, as in just sharing the journal, which I saw because I am friends with this person.
Right, that's what I was asking. So, but had you shared anything with anyone? Okay. And are you involved? Have you ever been in any groups, Facebook groups or any sort of group regarding this case?
No.
Are you on any other social media like Instagram or Twitter?
No.
Okay, so even with the information from your coworker, you feel like that's not something that would influence you if you were a juror on this case?
No.
Thank you.
All right, they're gonna take you back to the grand jury room. Thank you, sir. All right, any challenge or cause on juror 114 from the state,
No, Your Honor.
from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, juror 115. I'm sorry.
115.
I can't. Can you, Deputy, can you hold on a sec for waiting, juror 115? I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, but I declined. Yeah, no, I'm not. All right, you can bring her in now.
Okay.
You go. Oh.
Right here?
Right. I don't see that.
Okay.
All right, good morning, juror 115, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right, can you tell us what area of Nassau County you live in generally?
Right here.
Right, so in the Yulee area,
Right around the corner, yeah.
okay. And so you've indicated that you've heard about this case. Can you tell us from what sources?
Some from Facebook, some from friends. Guess that knew them, whatever.
And make sure you keep your voice up so I can hear you way over there, okay?
Okay,
And so from friends and from Facebook,
correct.
okay, was this a news feed on Facebook, or was it some, or a post or comments from friends, or both?
It was a news feed.
Okay, have you seen any television reports about this case?
I have seen some, yes.
And what about, have you read any newspaper articles about the case?
No, I don't know.
All right, from these various sources, can you tell us what specifically you've been told about the case?
That they worked together and, they were friends and I guess they had a disagreement or something and then she was seen on video stealing her SUV. And then, she went missing and, that she's done this before, that's what I heard. And that when she came, they found her, I guess, they found parts of her and posted, that's what I heard.
All right. Would you say you're following this case closely through Facebook or news?
If it's on there, I read it, let me put it that way, I wasn't following it
Okay.
closely, but I heard about it a lot, so.
Well, jurors in every case are required to base their decisions solely on what evidence is presented in the courtroom, as well as the instructions that they're given by the judge on the law. If you were selected as a juror in this case, could you set aside everything that you may have read on the Facebook news feeds or seen on television, and simply base your decisions on the evidence that's presented to you here in the court, as well as my instructions on the law?
No, I cannot.
Okay. State wish to inquire?
Yeah.
Defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. They'll take you back to grand jury.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
The objections to striking juror 115 for cause.
No, Your Honor.
Juror 116.
Right.
All right, good morning. Juror 116. Can you tell us what area of the Nassau County you live in just generally?
Yes, you'll be for Virginia.
Okay. I wanted to, in your questionnaire, you said you answered that you knew Joleen Cummings. Is that true?
Yes, I didn't know her in high school, and my wife was closer friends with her. We were all in a friend group.
Okay, and so knowing that this case involves Joleen Cummings, would that impact your ability to be fair and impartial to both sides?
I think it's fair to say it would.
Okay, based on you knowing her.
Yes, sir.
Does the state wish to inquire?
Yeah.
Defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. You can step back to the grand jury room.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, any objections striking juror 116 for cause?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Juror 117. All right, good morning.
Good morning.
Juror 117.
Yes.
Can you tell, thank you for being here, by the way. Can you tell us what area of Nassau County you live in?
Callahan.
Okay, and you've indicated that you have heard about this case.
In the beginning, but I didn't follow it. I mean, I don't have time to watch TV.
So you really have not read anything about this case, let me finish, since it first happened? You've not seen any television reports about this case since it happened? You need to answer out loud.
Oh, no,
Okay, have you talked to anyone in the community about this case since
No.
it happened?
No.
Okay, so what do you recall that you learned when you first read about it, back when it happened?
something about, that somebody was in murder and something about taking her vehicle and found it in, what, Home Depot or something, that's all I really remember. I don't even know how she got arrested.
All right, jurors, in any case, they're required to base their decisions solely on the evidence that's presented in the courtroom and the instructions on the law that the judge gives them. If you were selected as a juror in this case, could you set aside whatever you read back when this first happened and base your decision solely on the evidence presented to you in the court, as well as my instructions on the law?
Yes,
All right, is there anything that you read that would prevent you from being able to be fair to both sides?
no.
State wish to inquire?
Briefly.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I know that you said that you have not had time to follow up with it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you watch any of the local news?
No.
Read any local newspapers?
No.
Do you keep up with any national news?
No.
Any current events?
Nope.
No further questions.
Finish wish to inquire?
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning, number 117. Ordinary representing Ms. Kessler. How long have you lived in Callahan?
Since 2016?
And now you said, I think you're basically saying you had the news on this when it initially occurred, but since then, nothing really.
No.
Are you on Facebook?
Yes, but I don't get on it very much.
Okay, so you haven't seen anything pop up on there? Or do you get any of the local newspapers?
No.
And other than Facebook, any other social media that you're on? Okay, well, thank you.
All right, they're gonna take you back to the grand jury room now. Thank you. State wish to challenge juror 117 for cause. Defense?
No.
All right. Juror 118?
Okay.
All right. Juror 118, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here. First of all, can you tell us what area of Nassau County you live in? Just general? Callahan? Okay. And so you've indicated you've heard about this case. Can you tell us from what sources?
Just the news and Facebook, the news on Facebook.
Okay, so the news, would this be on television news or the print media, newspaper?
Yeah, print media.
Okay, so what,
And TV, so,
okay, so you've seen some stories about it.
yes.
Okay, and you said on Facebook, is that from comments from other people or just from a news?
No, it's on like the news, like on,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, make sure you wait till I finish my questions, all
sorry.
right, because she's trying to take down everything you say. It's fine, it's natural, okay? So just from a news feed. That's a yes? Okay. All right, so can you tell us what specifically you've been told about this case from those various sources?
Just that, like she has all these aliases or something, and that there's blood in her car and they can't find the body. So I don't know a whole lot, but just like the basic stuff, I guess.
Have you read about any of the potential evidence that might be presented in this case?
Just the blood, I guess, in the car. I don't,
Okay.
other than that, I haven't heard anything else.
All right, jurors in any case, any criminal case or any civil case for that matter, they're required to base their decisions solely on the evidence that's presented in the courtroom and the instructions on the law that the judge gives them. If you were selected in this case, can you set aside anything that you may have read or seen about this case in the news and base your decision solely on the evidence that's presented to you here in court and my instructions on the law? All right, well, let's clarify that, because when you say I think so, do you have some hesitancy about being able to do that, or are you just using the phrase I think so as a figure of speech?
A figure of speech.
All right. Is there anything about what you've seen or read about this case that would cause you to be unable to be fair to both sides?
Well, it's just that, like, Joleen was a mom, you know, and just with her kids, and I don't know, I just feel bad, and I know they haven't found her body and everything, but I don't know.
Well, you don't.
I'm just on the fence, I guess, about this whole thing, I don't know.
Well, okay, there's a lot to unpack there. You're on the fence about the whole thing. Certainly, anyone that reads about anyone that may be missing, that was a mother, may feel sympathy for that individual or the children. But can you set that aside and base your decision solely on evidence that's given to you and presented to you here in court?
Yes.
Okay. And can you be fair to the defense in this case if you're selected as a juror and not be impacted by perhaps, you know, a sympathy for a mother or the child? I'm sorry?
Yes.
Right, does the state wish to inquire?
Yeah.
Does the defense?
Morning, number 118. Courtney Miller representing Ms. Kessler. You did mention Facebook, correct?
Yes.
Is that, did you just happen to see stories come up?
Well, it was on my news, like Channel 4 or whatever has like those.
That's
you know,
right,
the
yeah, they do.
posts. Yes, just.
You ever share those
No.
stories?
No.
Anyone share them with you?
No.
Not in any groups or chats or any of that stuff? And I know you mentioned, I know it's natural for someone of concern for being a mother yourself. But let me ask you this, so if you were to sit as a juror, and again, there's no right or wrong answers, we're just here to talk about what you know and how it could affect you. Do you think, thinking about that, if you were chosen as a juror, would it cause you to lean more to one side than the other?
I don't know. I'd have to just listen to all the evidence, I guess. I don't know.
Well, you did say you knew some things about the case. You mentioned
Some.
a few specific things. What about knowing those things? Would that cause you to lean more direction, one direction than the other?
No, I don't think so. I don't know enough.
Okay. So anything you have known or heard, you feel like you could set that aside? You said probably, but.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. They're going to take you back to the grand jury room. All right, state wishes to challenge juror 118 for a cause. Defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, juror 119.
Sit on the first chair right there. Thank you.
Good morning, juror 119.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here and for your patience. Can you tell us what area of Nassau County you live in general?
Usually.
Okay. Now, you've indicated on your questionnaire that you haven't heard anything about this case. Is that true?
That is true.
Okay, so is it fair to say until I provided some information a few hours ago to you, that was That was the first time you'd ever heard anything about this case involving the defendant and Joleen Cummings?
Correct.
You never heard anything about a missing hairstylist at Tangle Salon?
No.
All right, the state wish to inquire?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
How long have you been in the Yulee area?
3 years.
Do you watch any local news?
No.
Do you subscribe to any of the local papers?
Nope.
Do you watch any national news?
Nope.
How do you keep up with current events?
Generally, on the internet.
Okay. What types of sites on the internet?
Yahoo, BBC. That's about it, right?
Okay, so national or international news
Yeah.
sites. Okay. Are you active on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram?
Facebook,
Okay. You haven't seen anything about this story on Facebook?
no.
Okay. No further questions.
Fence?
Yes, Ron. Morning.
Morning.
119. Miller, representing Ms. Kessler. I just barely heard, did you mention Facebook?
Correct.
You're on Facebook,
Correct. Yeah.
but you hadn't seen anything about this case come up on it?
No.
Are you on any other social media?
No, nothing really.
And you say you moved to Yulee 3 years ago?
Correct. Yeah.
Mind if I ask, you moved from another country? Or?
Did I move from another country?
Right,
Is that what you asked me?
I was just curious. Yeah.
Well, I've been living in Florida for about 30 years.
Okay. Well, thank you.
All right, they're gonna take you back to the grand jury room.
All right.
Thank you. State wish to challenge juror 119 for cause.
No, Your Honor.
Defense,
No, Your Honor.
all right, juror 120.
That's it. We don't have this one.
You don't have 120?
One was a failure.
This was a new.
Oh, from this morning, is that
It's on the list.
on the list? I didn't write it down. Okay. All right, so this is who I have for the group, just to make sure everybody, these are all the folks that were not excused. Juror 93, 95, 96, 98, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 107, 110, 114, 117, 118, and 119. Councilwoman, did I miss anyone?
That's what we have now.
All right, so that would be, I think, 51. Have 15, so that brings the total up to 68 as to where we are as far as jurors that have not been excused. So my question to you is, does both sides feel like we need to go to the next group? Hearing the silence.
State does not think we need to go to the next one.
No defense. Now, I'm not gonna release anybody. I mean, the only the issue is gonna be is if you don't get it done on Wednesday as you've requested, then you'll be back Thursday doing the same process.
Understood. Yes, sir. That sounds fine.
All right, I mean, now don't take that, while it is a safety net, do not take that as an invitation to just go ahead and do this because you want to do it again. But honestly, if we get through and there are challenges and we don't get the requisite amount of jurors, then we'll be back on Thursday. And so I just want to make sure you all are comfortable with that. Yes. All right. Then what we're gonna do, we're gonna kind of do what we did yesterday. I'm gonna address the jurors momentarily and tell them thank you and that they'll have to be back tomorrow. those that have not been excused. And then I'm going to tell the clerks to tell everyone else that are waiting, that they're released and that they'll be potentially required to come back on Thursday morning. But that they will be contacted by the clerk's office if they're not needed. And that's the way we're gonna leave it. So this time, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna bring in the jurors from that have been, or the jurors are over the grand jury room. And I'm gonna remove again the media, just because I need to be able to address these people. They're gonna be on the screen, but I'll readmit the media momentarily after I'm finished. So. So at this point, we're set up for, we've got 68 jurors. They'll start tomorrow morning with normal questioning. What I'm going to do, I was mapping it out this morning, and we're gonna have to do 35 at a time, okay? The first 35, and then it'll actually be 35. But I can fit 35, and the way I'm gonna do this is, this courtroom is, post-COVID, is not built for spacing people out and making it easy for your seating charts. So I'm gonna try to do my best on that. We're gonna put, everybody's gonna keep their same number, so it's not gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4. It's gonna be starting from lowest to highest, but it's not gonna be in sequential order anymore. We're gonna have 3 over there on the, what will be your, to the left. Okay, there'll be there'll be 5 rows of 3. Okay, and then, in the middle section, we're gonna put 2 chairs on the front row, and there will be 4 rows of 5. Okay, and I'm gonna we'll go down the left, and then we'll start, and we'll go down the middle. Okay, so it's not gonna be all the way across, like, if we were working in sequential order, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way through 15, and then you start 16 in the middle through 21, and then you do 22 through 27 in the middle. Do you understand that, what we're doing? In other words, it's gonna be, you're gonna go, the sequential order will be all the way on the left and then up the middle, okay? Instead of going all the way across one row and then all the way across the next row. Is that, I'm getting quizzical looks from the jury, from the attorneys. Do you understand what we're doing? I want to make sure everybody's on the same page. I don't like the way I've done it before, where I've done 1 through 8 on the front row using both the left and the middle. Okay, I've done that. It is very confusing because they are offset, and it's hard to tell who's on what row and who's not on what row. And I did that on the last jury trial, I believe, that I handled. And I found myself, oh, this is juror 17. No, I'm juror 24 or whatever, because they're offset. They just don't match. So you're going to go, it'd be 1 through 15 all the way on your left, and then 16 through 35 will be in the middle, except for they won't be numbered 1 through 35. They're going to keep their original numbers. So it'll be a little confusing, but I think this way you'll be able to set up your seating chart so that you can keep track of everyone, and keep it in order. It's just too confusing with the middle rows and the left rows off center. It just, I kept thinking the person on the front row was on the second row, and the front row in the middle was on the second row, and it just is not, it was challenging. So any questions about how we're going to seat everyone? Okay, so you can draft your charts accordingly. Like I said, we'll have 35, we'll basically have the 35 here in the morning, starting at 8:30, and then I'll have the next set come here, say starting at 1:30. And we'll go, and I know that we may, it may very well be that that we don't get started right at 1:30, but we've cut out a lot of what needs to be done, because you've already gone through everything that has to do with anyone having any information about the case. I'll have a few questions at the beginning. I'll ask you, since I don't have a list of witnesses, I'll just have, I don't care if the state or the defense stands, and you'll need to read a list of witnesses. I'll ask the defense if there's anybody else that you would need to call or potentially call that over and above what the state has done. I'll ask anyone if they know any of the attorneys and know any of the court personnel. But we'll be moving pretty quick into the instructions. Into the jury questions that by counsel. I've got a few instructions at the beginning. Mainly, though, I'm just going to remind them that they're not to talk about the case and not to do any research, and to answer all questions truthfully and completely. They've all been placed under oath at this point in time, so we can move right into the questioning. We will have 2 cameras on the jurors. The media may be here with a pool camera, but they will not be on the Zoom feed for tomorrow. I've talked with their attorneys and we'll arrange for that, because the defendant may choose not to be in the courtroom and be disruptive. We're gonna have 2 cameras, one on each side, so that she'll be able to see the faces of the jurors when they respond, okay? Sure. Question here, Mr. Miller? You know, it seemed like you had a very consulting there.
That's what we're fine.
All right.
Just, I'm sorry, what time did you say we should be here in the morning?
Well, I would, hopefully you guys can be here again at 8:15 like you were today, because I'd like to get started at 8:30 or as close there too as possible. Okay. I'll tell the clerk's office to have everybody here at 8:15 and so we get started, hopefully right around then.
Did you want to address some of the other matters this afternoon?
Yes, I do. Well, we're gonna talk about that. Let me make sure that we've got everything about jury, the next phase of jury selection. Any questions for counsel or even court personnel, since this is all kind of new for everyone.
I'll down there, something, the first part, so, was, usual, 8:30.
Yes, we're gonna need to call them and let them know it is, it'll be well, tomorrow, yeah, the folks, actually, the folks, you're gonna have to, I'm sorry. Everybody that was there today would actually only need to be here at 1:30. I mean, I'm sorry about that. That's my
We're
completely
gonna
my
break
fault.
it up, so we're
Right,
35,
right, and we got,
they'll be here at 8:30. The others-
right, yesterday, we got 53, so the first 35 need to be here, once you tell them at 8:15. And then the last is really 33, including the folks that we just had here. They need to be here at 1:30, and so I'm sorry, I didn't put 2 and 2 together when I sent you down there, and I apologize for that. So any other questions about the selection tomorrow and how it will run? I'm gonna get with the bailiffs too. I'll be able to talk with y'all a little bit more about setting it up. But anything else from the attorneys? Court personnel? All right. So yeah, this afternoon we need to have, we'll address those motions. It's 11:30 right now. Yeah, I think 1:30 should be, does that give everybody enough time to break and kind of shift gears a little bit?
Yes,
Start from the fifth.
All right, then we'll start back at 1:30 with the hearing on the various motions. Anything else, counsel?
No, sir.
In reviewing the jury, the proposed jury instruction from the defense about the defendant's absence from the courtroom.
I have, you filed one this morning. Copy.
One of the things we were going to address this afternoon.
All right, and this is what you submitted?
Yes, sir.
Is there an objection to this?
We'll be happy to discuss it this afternoon. It looks fine to begin just looking at it quickly.
I mean, it looks fairly straightforward, so. Or you're gonna say something.
I was just gonna say, after you filed with addressing it this afternoon.
What's left to address? What's left to address? All right. So with that, we'll see you all back here at 1:30 for hearing on motions. All right, thank you.